All right, welcome back to the channel. If you're just joining me for the first time, welcome. I have the M1A out at the range today. I'm going to show you how to qualify with your M1A rifle the U.S. Army way based on the procedure using FM 23-71, the Army Rifle Marksmanship Manual. A qualification course determines your proficiency with a weapon, graded against a series of tasks and courses of fire and how well you shoot. A typical Army range from the 1950s to the present day uses a series of motorized targets that move, which forces a shooter to select a target in a certain time and make a shot. Considering that units stationed in remote locations around the world or in cases of the National Guard and Reserves who may not have access to a structured facility on an installation, FM 23-71 describes an alternate course for qualification using paper targets instead. So to do this course, you'll need 50 rounds of ammo and multiple magazines. I was able to do so with 3 magazines, but I had to reload between sequences. You also want to download FM 23-71, pages 148 through 150. This is known as period 13. This will let you know what position and how many rounds you have to shoot. This is how you keep score. Last, you're going to place your target stands at 25 yards with 5 silhouettes. 2 will represent a target at 300 yards, and they will measure 2.5 inches tall and 1.5 inches wide. 2 targets representing 200 yards will measure 4.25 inches tall and 2.5 inches wide. Last, you'll need one known as the clock, which represents 100 yards, measuring 6.25 inches wide and 3.25 inches tall. Phase 1 is fired from the standing position. 8 shots. The first magazine is 3 rounds. The second magazine is 2 rounds, and the third magazine 3 rounds. You are allowed 10 seconds to make the first shot and 5 seconds to make each following shot. Phase 2 is shooting 25 shots at the 200-yard silhouettes. It begins in the standing position, loading a magazine and moving to sitting, squatting, or a kneeling position to engage your targets. The range safety on duty that day didn't feel comfortable with me sitting on the firing line, so I had to kneel instead. Same time limits apply for the first 4 magazines, 10 seconds for the first shot and 5 seconds for each shot afterwards. The way I interpreted the field manual was to start the clock after you loaded the magazine, and that gives you your 10 seconds to get into position and make a shot. I wrote out the times and sequences and rounds fired so that I could keep up with the whole thing while I was shooting this video. The last magazine for Phase 2 is shooting both the 200-yard silhouettes one at a time. Start with the left target, fire, aim to the right target, fire, and then aim back to the left target. After the first shot to the left target, you are required to reload a magazine and fire the remaining 8 rounds. You are allowed 25 seconds to move to position, fire the first shot, reload, and fire the second shot. The times for the following shot pairs are 15 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds again, and 5 seconds for the last single shot. Again, you have to shoot the left and right silhouettes alternating each shot. It required 2 magazines for me, one loaded with 1 round and the other loaded with 8 rounds. Phase 3 is movement from standing, this time to prone, twice to kneeling, and again for prone for your last magazine. The first 3 magazines follow suit this time with the time limits. 10 seconds for loading, movement, and the first shot, then 5 seconds for each shot afterwards. The 3 magazines you fire are at the left silhouette. The first magazine is 2 rounds, the second is 3, the third magazine is 3 rounds, and the fourth and last magazine is 9 rounds in this phase. On a side note, while I'm definitely not an advocate of ignoring guidance from a range safety officer, I didn't ask him about going prone even though he wasn't a fan of me sitting on the firing line. I waited till he was at the opposite end of the firing line to complete this phase. I didn't feel like modifying the prone position would give a solid demonstration for our purposes here. Again, for the final magazine, you want to fire at the left target, then fire at the right, then back to the left. You have 25 seconds to load, move to position, fire 1 shot left, and then 1 shot right. You have 10 seconds to fire the next 6 shots alternating left and right, and 5 seconds in the final shot. Once you complete all 50 rounds, you can count up all the hits. If the bullet breaks the black outline at all on the paper, that is considered a hit. My personal marksmanship is definitely in question here, attributed mainly in my focus to shoot this visual demonstration rather than to actually test my own skills. Hopefully you find this entertaining, perhaps a goal to focus on your own efforts towards in the future. So there are 2 caveats in this video. You are supposed to fire while wearing a helmet and load-bearing equipment, or LBE. In modern times we call it a flick or fighting load carrier. The second caveat is that 90 rounds total are supposed to be fired. 50 rounds are shot, how I've demonstrated here, and 40 are fired in a battlefield-type environment using obstacles such as logs, windows, trees, and piles of rubble. This is called period 14 and 15. Since we only shot period 13, you take the pages 148, 149, and 150 that I mentioned earlier and write in your scores, hits and misses. The total on the sheet is 90, but we shot 50 rounds. So each count listed on the sheet is a percent of 90 and use the percent towards 50. For example, 60 is 66% of 90. So 66% of 50 is 33. So to shoot expert, you have to make 33 or more hits. You apply that same percentage of 90 to each of the other figures. At least that's what I came up with here. They are not all whole numbers, but I just rounded.
The more you practice with the rifle, the better your scores will improve. As for the field manual and the pages, I just Googled it and printed them off.